Hello everyone and welcome to Risk of Rain in Depth. On today's episode, we'll be taking a closer look at one of my personal favorite characters, Engineer. This video will be separated into a few parts. First, we'll look at the Engineer's base stats, then move on to his abilities. Of course covering his turrets because, you have to cover the turrets. Turrets are like his whole kit. After looking at abilities, we'll go and look at some items that pair well with his kit. Then we'll look at some loadout recommendations. Starting off with his stats, Engineer has very high damage at a base of 14, and he's pretty tanky as well, coming in at a chunky 130 HP. Engineer can be a powerhouse that kills everything on sight, or you can play a little defensively and work around his turrets more. In total, Engineer has 7 abilities, leaving only his primary without an alternate. Later in the video, I do have a solution to this, so stay tuned. And since I just mentioned his primary, why not tell you all about it? Engineer's primary is bouncing grenades. And I'm not gonna lie, just due to the nature of its spread and accuracy, it's not the best. And if the spread wasn't enough, it has a massive charge time of roughly 4 seconds without any items. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that you should definitely try to hit all of your shots here or else it's not going to be the best. But if you do manage to hit all your shots, you can deal up to 800% damage at 100% damage in nade. Simple math leaves us with 8 nades if you didn't get that already. Anyway, on the bright side, this ability does have a proc chance of 1. So you will be proccing your items fairly regularly. Oh, and a cool thing about this ability is that it's not considered agile like some of Huntress's abilities, but once you start charging it, you can actually start to sprint and not cancel the ability. And now that we're finished with Engineer's primary, we can move on to his secondary. This ability is called Pressure Mines, and realistically, this ability isn't the best, but it can put out massive damage if used in the right way. Engineer's secondary has 4 charges, and using one will cause him to throw out a little landmine that deals 300% damage at first, but once waiting a couple seconds, this gets bumped up to 900% damage. The mine's radius is 7.5 meters, and it doesn't have any fall off damage either, so you're going to be dealing that max damage wherever they are in the radius. This ability has a cooldown of 8 seconds, but it's not what you think it is. Each mine has a cooldown of 8 seconds, so you're looking at around 32 seconds of cooling down before you can throw all 4 of your mines out again. Luckily, the mines have a proc coefficient of 1, so you'll be seeing the same amount of items proccing as your primary. Moving on to the Engineer's alternate secondary, we have Spider Mines. And in almost every way, this is a straight upgrade. Now, this ability does have to be unlocked, and to do that, you need to kill a teleporter boss in less than 5 seconds after it spawns. Unfortunately, I have no easy way to get this one done. My suggestion is just to keep playing Engineer until you get a God Run. Unlike the regular mines, Spider Mines can actually move. I can't tell you how much of an improvement this is because you don't actually have to rely on the enemies paddling over the mines anymore. The cooldown and proc coefficient are exactly the same as the regular mines at 8 seconds per mine and a coefficient of 1. Another big difference between these two abilities is that the Spider Mines do 600% damage at all times and don't have to charge to deal max damage. And something to note about both mines is that you can only have 4 deployed at a time, so you should save your charges if you have extra. Now that we're done with the secondaries, we can take a look at the utilities of the Engineer. And the 2 utilities that the Engineer have play in completely different ways. First, we'll be taking a look at the bubble shield. This ability will throw out a shield in the shape of a bubble. Nothing can shoot into the shield, and anything can shoot out of the shield. If you've played Overwatch before, this functions very similar to Reinhardt shields, as you and your allies can shoot through it on one side, but enemies cannot shoot into it. They can, however, walk into the shield and start doing damage to you. The cooldown for this ability is 25 seconds, but the bubble itself lasts for 15, so you're actually really only looking at a 10-second cooldown. The radius of the shield is 9.75 meters, so it's a fairly big area to work with, but I don't suggest getting too comfortable because in Risk of Rain you should never be standing still for too long or you will die a horrible death. On the flip side is his alternate utility, Thermal Harpoons. This is definitely the choice if you're going for a more aggressive playstyle, because this actually does damage. Again, this is an unlockable ability, and to unlock it, you'll need to finish charging the teleporter with 0 monsters remaining on the stage. So if you ever kill the teleporter boss early, make sure to kill those regular enemies to unlock this one. Getting into the stats, you can hold up to 4 harpoons at a time, and to fire these you will need to lock onto a target. This is very similar to the way Huntress locks on with her abilities. Each of the harpoons will do 500% damage and have a proc coefficient of 1. So you'll be doing tons of damage and proccing at all the normal rates. As for cooldowns, each harpoon takes 2.5 seconds to recharge, but the act of targeting and firing pauses the cooldowns. With the utility out of the way, now comes the part we're all here for, the turrets. The first thing to talk about is that the turrets will have all the items that you have, a cooldown of 30 seconds, and you can place up to 2 at a time. So if you pick up a teddy bear and place a turret, the turret will block damage sometimes as well. Anyway, starting with the first turret, the TR-12 Gauss Auto Turret. For simplicity, I'll just refer to this as the stationary turret. This turret doesn't move and will fire 3 times a second for 70% of the turret's base damage, which in this case is 16. So not only do they have high damage, but they also have high health, coming in at 130. And damn, that's crazy for a turret. One of the only downfalls about these turrets is that they have damage fall off. This starts at around 25 meters and ends around 60. Their damage can fall down to as low as 50% of their original shots. So anything that is really far away, you're basically just going to be tickling. As for item procs, the turrets have a coefficient of 1, so they will be proccing at all the normal rates. Also, a quick tip about these turrets is that if you're ever on the desert map and you want to get to the double bands area on solo, you can actually place your turrets on the panels to open the secret area. The other option you have is the TR-58 Carbonizer turret, or as I'm going to call them, moving turrets. This is like every other alternate ability, you have to unlock it first. This one, however, is super easy. All you have to do is own 12 turrets at the same time. So just go around and buy as many as you can, and you should have this done in no time. Obviously, these turrets can move, but they are kind of slow, so they'll have a hard time keeping up with the player. This version of the turret shoots lasers, and these lasers do 200% damage every second, and will slow enemies on hit. The only problem with these guys is that their proc coefficient is an itty bitty 0.6, so you will not see a lot of items proccing from these bad boys. Okay, now that we're done with all the abilities, we can talk about some items that go well with Engineer. Starting off, we have the almighty Bussin' Fungus. Sheesh! This item goes great with the stationary turrets as they never move, so the effect of the fungi will always be active. So if you ever need a quick heal, just pop by these guys, stand around for a bit, throw your bubble down. Another good item to look out for is Hard Light Afterburner. This one works so well with the bubble shield because you can effectively always have it up. If you didn't already know, this item gives you a 33% cooldown reduction on your utility, and you can hold up to 3 charges of it. Another red that works really well is Dio's best friend. What this does is it gives every one of your turrets an extra life, and when revived, it gives around 3 seconds of invulnerability. Bad news is, if you die and use this item, your turrets will no longer have this effect. And the last item that I recommend picking up is Visions of Heresy. This item will replace both your primary fire and your turret fire, so if you're not liking the primary fire of the Engineer, you can swap this out to have a better time. Moving on to our final section, we have loadout recommendations. Looking at the mines, there is no debate here. Spider mines are far better than the regular ones, and once you unlock this, you should run it all the time. As for the utility, this really depends on your playstyle. If you are an aggressive player, then go with the harpoons. But if you play more defensively, you should definitely go with the bubble. And finally, we have the turrets. Personally, I'd tell you to go with the stationary ones just because of how good the bustling fungus works with them. But honestly, this one's up to you and however you want to play. If you want your turrets to follow you around, then go for the moving ones. Anyway, that's it for this episode of Risk Rain in Depth. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, then leave a like, and if you didn't, then leave a dislike and tell me what I should change. The last episode was on Huntress, and you can find that by clicking the little box thingy down on the right. Oh yeah, it would also be really nice if you subscribe, because I got big plans coming to this channel, just like I said in the last video.